My name is Finley Clark. I am 26 years old. I stood in the living room of our family home in Billings, Montana, the air still heavy with the scent of sympathy flowers from Dad's funeral just 3 days earlier. My mom, Marie Clark, paced in front of the fireplace. Her eyes narrowed at me like I'd done something wrong by simply existing. Finley, let's be clear, you were always the afterthought in this family. She snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through the winter chill seeping through the windows. The house, the cabin up near Flathead Lake. The business, it's all going to Stacy and Daryl. They're the ones who deserve it, not you with your little job and your endless disappointments. Her words hit me like a slap, but I wasn't surprised. Mom had always made it obvious she saw me as the lesser child, the one who never measured up to my older sister Stacy or my older brother Daryl. Dad, Jerry Clark, had been the buffer, the one who tried to balance things out. But now he was gone, taken by a long battle with cancer, and Mom was unleashing years of resentment. I felt my chest tighten, the grief mixing with that familiar sting of being invisible in my own home. What would you do if your own mother looked at you like you were a burden right after burying your dad? Have any of you dealt with a parent who played favorites so blatantly? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear if I'm not alone in this. Growing up in Billings wasn't all bad, at least not at first. Our house was a modest ranch-style place on the edge of town, with a big yard that backed up to open fields where the Rockies loomed in the distance. Dad ran a small construction supply business downtown, nothing fancy, but it kept us comfortable. He was the steady one, always tinkering in the garage or taking us kids fishing at the Yellowstone River on weekends. Mom, though, she was the storm cloud. From as early as I can remember, she doted on Stacy and Daryl like they were golden. Stacy, 5 years older than me, was the perfect daughter in her eyes. Straight A's cheerleader, always saying the right things. Daryl, 3 years ahead of me, was the son who could do no wrong even when he skipped school or wrecked the family truck. I was the youngest, the surprise baby Mom never let me forget about. She'd say things like, "Finley, if you'd just try harder, maybe you'd be more like your sister," right in front of everyone at holiday gatherings. One memory sticks out from when I was about 8. It was Christmas morning, and we'd all rushed downstairs to open presents. Stacy got a new bike, shiny and red, something she'd been begging for. Daryl unwrapped a video game system, his eyes lighting up. My gift, a used sweater from the thrift store that didn't even fit. Mom laughed it off, saying, "Oh, Finley, you're so picky anyway, it'll stretch." Dad pulled me aside later and slipped me some cash to buy what I wanted, but the damage was done. I spent the day in my room wondering why Mom seemed to resent me so much. As we got older, the favoritism only dug deeper. In high school, when Stacy wanted to go to college out of state, Mom convinced Dad to dip into savings to cover her tuition at some fancy private school in Colorado. Daryl flunked out of community college twice, but Mom kept pushing Dad to give him second chances, even hiring him at the business despite his spotty work ethic. Me, I worked part-time jobs through high school to save for my own education. I ended up at Montana State right here in Billings studying business administration and paid my way with scholarships and waitressing gigs. Mom's response when I graduated, a curt, "Well, at least you didn't embarrass us." It was like my achievements were footnotes, while Stacy landing a job as a paralegal in a big firm downtown was cause for a family celebration, and Daryl's promotion to manager at Dad's supply business, despite rumors he'd been skimming petty cash, was hailed as proof of his brilliance. Dad saw it all, I think. He'd pull me into hugs when Mom wasn't looking, whispering, "You're my strong one, Finley. Don't let her dim your light." But he never confronted her directly. He was too conflict-averse, always trying to keep the peace. That pattern wore on me over the years. By the time I was in my early 20s, I'd landed a job as an office manager at a local real estate agency in Billings. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me independence. I rented a small apartment near downtown with views of the Rimrocks and started building a life away from the family drama. Still, Mom found ways to pull me back in, guilting me into helping with Dad's care when his health declined. Dad's cancer diagnosis hit 2 years ago, right around my 24th birthday. It started with fatigue, then tests, then treatments that drained him. Mom played the devoted wife in public, but at home she'd complain about the costs, the inconvenience. "This is ruining our plans," she'd hiss when she thought I wasn't listening. Stacy and Daryl visited sporadically, always with excuses: Stacy's busy caseload, Daryl's important meetings. I was the one who drove Dad to chemo appointments, sat with him through the nausea, and managed his medications. Mom resented that too, accusing me of trying to make her look bad by being so involved. One afternoon, after a particularly rough session, Dad squeezed my hand in the car. "Finley promised me you'll look after yourself when I'm gone. Your mom, she's got her blind spots." I nodded, but I didn't understand the weight of his words then. As Dad weakened, the whispers started. I'd overhear Mom on the phone with Stacy or Daryl talking about securing the future and making sure things go to the right people. Dad's will, from what I knew, was straightforward: assets split among us kids after Mom's lifetime use. But Mom began dropping hints that blood ties matter, even though we were all her biological children. It made no sense until I realized her disdain for me ran deeper than I thought. Maybe it was because I looked like Dad's side of the family, or because I didn't fawn over her like the others. Whatever it was, she saw me as an outsider in her own narrative. The funeral was a blur of casseroles from neighbors and awkward condolences. Billings winters are brutal, with snow blanketing everything in a harsh white, mirroring the coldness I felt inside. That afternoon, in the living room, after most guests had left, Mom cornered me with Stacy and Daryl flanking her like bodyguards. Stacy, now 31, crossed her arms, her lawyer's suit still pristine. Daryl, 29, leaned against the wall, fiddling with his expensive watch, a gift from Mom last year. "We've reviewed the will with our attorney," Mom continued after her opening jab, her tone businesslike. "The life insurance is yours, Finley, about $75,000 after taxes. But there are medical bills piling up around $60,000. You'll have maybe $15,000 left." I blinked, processing. $15,000. After everything? And the rest? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Mom waved a hand. "The house here in Billings worth about $750,000. The cabin near Flathead Lake around $600,000. The construction supply business valued at $400,000. Those go to Stacy and Daryl. It's only fair they've been the backbone." Fair. The word twisted in my gut. I'd been the one holding Dad's hand at the end while Stacy canceled visits, and Daryl showed up reeking of last night's bar crawl. "You've got 30 days to clear out your old stuff." Mom added, her eyes cold. "We think that's generous." Generous. I looked at Stacy's necklace, a pearl strand Dad had given her for her promotion. Daryl's cufflinks engraved with his initials, another Dad splurge. They wore symbols of his love while stripping mine away. I managed a nod, excusing myself to the kitchen where I gripped the counter, fighting tears. That night, alone in my apartment, I replayed Mom's words. Her deep dislike wasn't new, but this. It felt like she'd been waiting for Dad to die to finally erase me. The next morning, sorting through Dad's study, a room Mom rarely entered, I found it. His desk drawer, usually locked, was ajar. Inside, under old photos and his reading glasses, was a small brass key I'd never seen. It felt heavy in my palm, like it carried secrets. Dad had been meticulous. This wasn't random. Through the window, I saw Mom in the yard talking animatedly on the phone, probably to Stacy or Daryl. They were already planning their windfall. I pocketed the key, a spark of something, not hope, but curiosity, igniting. My phone rang later that day. It was my half-brother Alex from Dad's first marriage. He was 33, lived up in Missoula, working as a freelance photographer. We'd grown close over the years, especially since Mom treated him like an intruder. "Finley, I heard from a neighbor. Stacy and Daryl are taking everything." His voice was edged with anger. Alex had never asked Dad for a dime, building his life on his own. During Dad's illness, he'd driven down weekly, bringing photos of the mountains to cheer him up. Stacy and Daryl barely showed. Yeah, I admitted. Mom's leading the charge. That's bullshit, he said fiercely. You were there every day. Dad would hate this. We talked for an hour and his support steadied me. After hanging up, I drove to see Howard Pierce, the family attorney. His office downtown smelled of coffee and old books. When I explained, he frowned. This doesn't add up, Finley. Contest it. But a fight could drag on, and with Mom's influence, I'd lose more than money. The key burned in my pocket. What if I just let them have it? Howard stared. That'd be crazy. But I insisted he prepare the papers. That evening, a text from Daryl. Family gathering at our place tomorrow. Let's smooth this over. Family. The word mocked me. I'd go play along. Dad had taught me patience, and I sensed he left me tools to use it. Daryl's house was in an upscale suburb of Billings with manicured lawns and luxury cars in the drive. Holly, his wife, answered the door in a designer outfit, her smile plastic. Finley, come in. We're keeping this civil. The living room was staged like a magazine, plush sofas, fresh flowers. Stacy swirled wine. Daryl shook my hand too hard. Mom sat at the center, queen of her court. We've got the papers, Mom said, sliding a folder over. Sign, and we move on. I flipped through transfers deeds. My life with Dad reduced to ink. No rush, I said. Mom's eyes flashed. Actually, there is. Taxes, timelines. Then I mentioned the key, the odd documents I'd glimpsed in Dad's study. The room froze. Daryl dropped his glass. Stacy's face paled. Dessert, Holly chirped desperately. Mom recovered. Probably nothing. Dad was forgetful. But her voice shook. The rest of the evening was tense. Mom steering conversation away, but I saw the cracks. Driving home, I smiled. Dad used to say, let people show their colors. Mom's disdain had blinded her, but maybe he'd seen it coming. The next day, I found a card in Dad's wallet. First Bank of Montana, a box number scrawled. At the bank, the manager led me to the vault. Inside the box, folders in Dad's handwriting. Inside the box were manila folders neatly labeled in Dad's precise handwriting that I'd recognize anywhere. I spread them out on the small table in the viewing room, my heart pounding as I opened the first one marked Communications. It was full of printed emails, some highlighted dating back about 10 months right after Dad's diagnosis. The earliest was from Mom to Stacy. Finley's been hovering too much. Once your father's gone, she'll be easy to sideline. The assets are for you and Daryl. She's never pulled her weight. I stared at the words, feeling a chill. Mom had been planning this for months, dismissing me like I was disposable. There were more dozens. Mom to Daryl. We've got to consolidate before Finley's sniffing around. The business alone is worth $400,000. Split with Stacy, you can pay off those loans and start fresh. Loans, I flipped to another, Stacy replying. Mom's right, Daryl. Finley's the weak link. Dad's too soft on her. But it was Mom's messages that stung deepest, always starting the chain, pushing the agenda. Her deep contempt shone through. Finley's always been the mistake. Lazy, ungrateful. Time to cut her out for good. She'd orchestrated it all, using my siblings as her enforcers, while Dad fought cancer alone. The second folder, accounts, made my head spin. Bank statements for a holding company I'd never heard of, Clark Family Holdings, LLC. Balances totaled over $5 million. A sticky note in Dad's hand. Our real security, Finley. Your mom thinks it's all in the properties and business. Let her. He'd quietly moved funds over the past year, restructuring to shield them while Mom and the others schemed. She'd been so focused on her favorites she hadn't noticed. The third folder hit like a gut punch. Investigations. A private investigator's report from a firm in Helena. Photos of Stacy at high-stakes poker games in Vegas, debt notices from shady lenders, $250,000 owed. Daryl's section was worse. Records of him embezzling from Dad's business, forging invoices, siphoning off nearly $300,000 to cover personal fraud. The PI's note: subjects engaged in systematic theft, criminal exposure high. Mom's involvement emails showing she'd covered for them, transferring business funds to bail them out, all while berating me for not contributing more. A thin folder held medical records, a letter from Dad's neurologist dated 5 weeks before his death. Patient Jerry Clark remains fully competent. Someone traced back to Mom via emails had tried to declare him incompetent to rewrite the will in favor of Stacy and Daryl. The last folder: 2 wills. The old one split evenly. The new from 6 weeks ago left everything to me with options to gift properties at my discretion. At the bottom, an envelope. Finley read last. Dad's letter explained it all. He'd overheard Mom plotting 10 months back. Finley's useless. The money's for the real kids. He'd hired the PI, documented everything, set traps. Your mom resents you because you remind her of my independence, he wrote. But you're the strong one. Choices are yours now. I left the bank shaking, not from anger but from the love Dad had shown in his final act. He'd turned Mom's hatred into a shield for me. That afternoon, Howard called. Papers are ready, but Finley reconsider. I told him to set a meeting. Meanwhile, Mom texted, come over tonight, we need to finalize. Her pressure was ramping up. I arrived at the house that evening, the Montana sunset casting long shadows across the yard. Mom answered, her face pinched. About time. Stacy and Daryl are waiting. In the kitchen, they sat around, the island folders spread out. Mom started right in. Finley, stop dragging your feet. Sign the transfers or we'll make this ugly. Her voice dripped with that familiar scorn, like I was a child misbehaving. Stacy chimed in. Yeah, Mom's handled everything, you don't deserve a say. Daryl nodded, but I saw the unease in his eyes. I found some things in Dad's study, I said calmly, watching Mom's reaction. Emails, records, a key to a box. Mom's coffee mug slammed down. What are you implying? You're always causing trouble, Finley, jealous, spiteful. She leaned in, her words venomous. You've never been good enough for this family. The attack was all hers, sparking the tension. Stacy and Daryl piled on, but Mom led. Hand over whatever you found, she demanded. I played dumb, saying I'd look into it. The evening devolved into accusations, Mom guilting me about ruining Dad's memory. I left with them fuming, Mom's parting shot, you'll regret crossing me. Over the next week, the pressure mounted. Mom called daily, her voicemails escalating. Finley, you're being selfish just like always. Sign or face consequences. She showed up at my office one afternoon, storming past the receptionist. We need to talk, she barked in front of my coworkers. You're holding up the family. Stacy needs that cabin for her kids. Daryl's counting on the business. Her deep dislike boiled over, humiliating me publicly. You've always been the burden, she hissed. My boss pulled me aside later. Everything okay? I nodded, but inside the stress was building, sleepless nights, anxiety creeping into my work. Stacy texted threats. Mom's furious. Don't make us lawyer up. Daryl cornered me at a coffee shop. Just give in, Finley. Mom knows best. But it was Mom orchestrating her resentment, the driving force. My health suffered. A migraine sent me home early one day, and I missed a key client meeting, jeopardizing a big sale. My boyfriend, who'd been supportive, started pulling away. This family drama's too much. In therapy that week, I'd started sessions during Dad's illness. The counselor said, your mom's toxicity is eroding your life. I knew she was right. Then the breaking point, a call from Alex. Finley, Mom's spreading rumors, told our aunt you're contesting the will out of greed. It was a low blow, twisting my pain into villainy. That night, alone in my apartment, I pored over Dad's letter again. Choices: keep it all, gift with strings, or expose. I'd met with Samuel Foster, the secret attorney Dad mentioned. His office was in a quiet strip mall on the west side of Billings. Gray-haired, sharp-eyed, he laid it out. Properties, Mortgaged heavily house underwater by 200,000 cabin, by 150,000 business with hidden liens totaling 300,000. Your dad called it his safeguard, Samuel said. Mom and the others inherit debt. Mom demanded a family meeting at Howard's office downtown. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Her text read, "Bring whatever nonsense you've found and end this." I agreed, heart racing. Samuel would join. As I drove home under the starry Montana sky, I felt the shift. I wouldn't be her scapegoat anymore. The next morning, I walked into Howard's conference room, the city skyline muted by fogged windows. The next morning, I walked into Howard's conference room, the city skyline muted by fogged windows. Mom sat at the head of the table, her posture rigid like she owned the room. Stacy fidgeted beside her. Daryl slouched with his phone out. Holly stared at the floor. Howard paced by the coffee cart looking uneasy. Samuel followed me in briefcase in hand. Mom's eyes locked on me immediately, her voice slicing through the tension before anyone else could speak. "Finley, this nonsense ends now. You've always been the troublemaker stirring up drama when you should just accept your place." Her words were laced with that deep-seated contempt, the kind that made it clear she'd never seen me as worthy. I took a seat, keeping my expression neutral. Samuel introduced himself. "I'm Jerry Clark's retained attorney handling the updated directives." Howard's head snapped up. "I'm the family attorney." Mom waved him off. "Not anymore, apparently. Finley, whatever lies you've concocted, spit them out. You're wasting our time. Stacy and Daryl have lives to get back to." She leaned forward, her glare piercing. "You've never appreciated what we've given you, always whining like the ungrateful child you are." It was classic Mom starting the attack, setting the tone for Stacy to nod agreement and Daryl to mutter support. Samuel opened his briefcase. "Let's discuss the irregularities." He spread the emails like evidence in a trial. Mom's face drained of color as he read the first, "From Marie to Stacy. Finley's the weak link, cut her out. The assets are for the real kids." Mom shot to her feet. "That's private. How dare you? Finley, this is your doing, isn't it? Always sneaking around trying to steal what's not yours." Her accusation fueled the room. Stacy gasped. "Mom's right, this is out of context." Daryl added, "Yeah, you're twisting things." But Mom kept leading. "She's always been jealous, resenting us for succeeding where she failed." Samuel continued quoting more, her plans to sideline me, her dismissals of my efforts during Dad's illness. Howard examined the pages, his brow furrowing. "Marie, these suggest premeditation." Mom turned on him. "Stay out of it. Finley's manipulating everyone just like she did with Jerry." Samuel moved to the investigation folder. "Let's address the desperation behind this." He laid out Stacy's gambling debts, $250,000 to underground lenders, photos of her at tables in Reno. Mom's hand trembled. "That's a lie. Stacy's perfect. Finley's fabricating this to hurt us." But the contempt in her eyes shifted to panic as Samuel revealed Daryl's embezzlement, $300,000 siphoned from the business, forged checks to cover fraud. "Criminal acts," Samuel said. Mom exploded. "Impossible. Daryl's the future of that company. Finley's the thief here, always taking without giving back." Holly whispered, "Daryl, is this true?" He stammered, but Mom cut in. "Of course not. This is Finley's revenge for being the lesser child." Samuel presented the medical letter. Attempts to declare Jerry incompetent traced to Marie. Mom's face twisted. "I was protecting the family. Finley was confusing him, turning him against us." The room erupted. Stacy accused Daryl of dragging them down. Daryl blamed Mom for pushing too hard. But it was Mom at the center, her deep dislike for me, fueling every denial. "This is all because of you, Finley. You've ruined everything with your bitterness." Samuel revealed the wills. The new one left it all to me. Mom lunged for it. "Invalid Jerry wasn't right in the head. Finley's influence." Samuel countered. "He was competent per the neurologist. And Marie, you were fired as executor months ago for conflicts. Howard stared at her. You accessed my files. Mom hissed. I had to. Finley was scheming. Chaos ensued, siblings turning on each other, but Mom directed her fury at me. You've always been ashamed of Finley, the mistake I regretted. Now you're destroying your own family. Finally, the property's house mortgaged for $900,000 underwater by $200,000. Cabin at $750,000 mortgage down $150,000. Business with liens of $300,000. Debt transfers with the assets, Samuel explained. Mom whispered, no. Her empire crumbled. I stood. Dad gave me options. I could keep it all, expose the crimes, or gift with consequences. Mom's eyes widened. You wouldn't. But I signed the gift deeds. You get what you wanted plus the debt. 30 days to handle or foreclosure. Stacy begged. Mom, fix this. Daryl paled. We can't afford? Mom's voice broke. Finley, please think of the family. But her plea rang hollow, laced with the same resentment. Samuel added, refuse and charges follow fraud, elder abuse. The clock ticked. Mom signed first, tears streaming, then the others. We're done, I said, looking at her. Goodbye, Mom. Walking out into the crisp Billings air, I felt a weight lift, not triumph, but release. The fallout came swiftly. Within weeks, Stacy filed bankruptcy, her paralegal job gone after the bar investigated her debts. She moved to a tiny apartment in Bozeman, attending debt counseling. Daryl's business dissolved. Clients sued for the embezzlement. Criminal pleas loomed. He took a warehouse job in Great Falls, and Holly divorced him, taking half of nothing. Mom, the house foreclosed. She sold the cabin at a loss, ending up in a senior complex on the east side of Billings, scraping by on Social Security. Her reputation shattered, neighbors whispered about the greedy widow. She called once, begging for help. Finley, I'm your mother, how could you? I hung up. Her actions had consequences. She'd lost her comfort, her control, her favorites' blind loyalty. I kept the $5 million in holdings but used it wisely. Bought a cozy bungalow near the Rims with a view of the valley where Dad and I used to hike. My job at the real estate agency flourished. I got promoted to senior manager, closing deals that built my confidence. Therapy helped unpack the years of Mom's contempt. I realized her dislike stemmed from her own insecurities, but that didn't excuse it. Alex visited often. We became chosen family, road tripping to Flathead Lake, now mine, but I rented it out for income. I started dating again, someone who saw my strength, not my scars. Boundaries were key. I blocked Mom's number, ignored. Stacy's pleas told Daryl to lose mine. No more guilt trips, no more being the scapegoat. Life felt lighter, weekends painting with Alex, volunteering at a cancer support group in Dad's memory. One evening, watching the sunset from my porch, I held Dad's letter. He'd taught me family isn't blood, it's who shows up without strings. What I learned: toxic parents like my mom drain you if you let them. Love means boundaries, and choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. I won't let her back in. That door's closed for good. Have you cut ties with a toxic mom? What pushed you to finally say no? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories.